Sorry, I did that
Oh,
now. All right, my bad. All right, sorry everybody. Fortunately we haven't missed any moves, but a snafu on my part. Hey everybody, Will and Sam here. I guess our intro did not actually get picked up thanks to me not clicking a button, but fortunately we have not actually missed any plays here from day 2 at the 2025 World Cup. Apologies to everybody behind the scenes who just did a very nicely produced introduction and all of that stuff, but at least we didn't miss any Scrabble. Sorry about that, Sam, and to our producer Christian behind the scenes. In any case, we were just talking off air about our two players, and they are the top two players in the standings right now. David Whitley in first place and Josh right behind with the same record, but a little bit lower spread. And Sam, you'll have to repeat yourself, but you were mentioning that you and Josh have played a lot of games lately in the same region.
yeah, I don't know David as well. He's going to play Maw, which looks fine to me. There's no bingos. Going to take a minute and a half to look for bingos with that first blank that he's already got. But yeah, I play Josh like almost every week at the DC, at one of the DC clubs and at local tournaments. He's kind of like my, like the top competition. I mean, one of the best players in Collins in North America. So it'll be fun to watch him play. He's, already faced with a tough decision here. I'd be looking to play, maybe Airy, AERIE or something, but he might almost, I'm not sure how he's going to get out of this rack because that doesn't look to play very well anywhere without setting up a big spot for David.
Yeah, certainly with all those vowels on Josh's rack, you see 6 of them there. I guess really the standout place to play Airy is if he thinks about the R hook.
Oh,
I now live in the Philly suburbs, so Bryn Mawr is definitely a key location in this area. So there you go. You could play that. That is a valid word. That definitely has its warts as a play, leaving just IO. I don't know. I feel like the other option is just playing owie, the roo, this W, very useful, newly added word in one of the previous updates for when when you get an injury of some sort. Owie, I guess, is the word you would say. There we go. He's going to go ahead and play this. I feel like this is maybe a little bit better than exchanging, Sam, but it's close.
Yeah, I agree. It seems a little better than exchanging. Just, your leave is decent, really. I mean, you're probably going to keep something like EIR anyway on an exchange or EAR. I did miss that Mar hook. It's a little tricky to see. I wonder if Josh, it's possible he didn't see it, or it's also possible he saw it and then he thought Owie was a better play. I don't know. Do you have a preference between those two or close?
I guess, yeah. I mean, the nice thing about it, if you're Josh, is you do have an R. So in your leave, you contain a hook for Owie, right? So if you do draw something and it turns out he has done just that. So just in the nick of time to his vowel heavy leave, he's drawn Perinia, which is now going to play with Rowie, assuming that David bingos in a way that does not obstruct it. Of course, it does seem very likely that David is going to bingo with his own play of, he is going to play dashing. That seems reasonable. Other options could have been to just play something with Dowie on top, but even that would have yielded bingos back to Josh. So fireworks in the early going. The highest scoring bingo, Sam, was actually shading alongside Owie's, putting the H in this spot. Do you think that would have been worth it there for 85 points?
I do slightly. I think, you're sacrificing 6 points and you're putting a G in a triple when, Josh's low point letters, it's unlikely he's going to triple through a G. It's possible. You already know there's only one blank out there. So to me, yeah, I probably wouldn't have sacrificed that much, but it's not a big difference. And Josh's going to quickly play his, what probably his best play, although he could have Well, he is opening up quite a big scoring spot there with that E. So he could have sacrificed 3 points and played Perinia at 12A, forming Da.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy when you look at it, how many positions the word perineum, the 7-letter word on his rack, actually fit on the board. It fits here underneath the D, or it fits here, making 2 overlaps. It fits here, here. Where else? On top, you can play it on top of the D. So there were a million places to play perineum, but none of them scored as well as Josh's eventual play of Perigean. Only scary thing about it is this scoring spot right here could be pretty bad, but there already is, as the board spins on me here. Let's see if my marks end up in the same place. Not quite. But opening this spot, maybe not quite as much of a downside when you already have a good scoring spot to a triple open. Generally, that principle, Sam, is if there's one good spot on the board, that's kind of dangerous. But if there's 2, you might get one next turn.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is fine. You're always, putting an E there. You always worry, if David is just bingo, he drew the Z, he's going to get 60 points plus. If he drew the J, he almost certainly is going to fit a word there. But yeah, there is this other spot with the A in dashing. And actually, Josh has drawn the Z, so it's possible he'll get to play Zest if David doesn't play there. To your point about there being multiple spots on this board for good plays. And speaking of good plays, David does have one bingo available. It's not the easiest, in my opinion, to spot. So it's an 8-letter word. I don't know if I want to spoil it just yet, but though people are mentioning it in the chat.
Yeah, has been mentioned in the chat a few times. One bingo available only. Snow line through this N.
Oh,
the crazy thing about that is not only does Josh, as you said, Sam, he's got Zest ready to rock next turn for a very good score. If Snowline is spotted, he might opt to play Azons through the N of Snowline. So he's going to have 2 choices that score a ton of points for his Z, no matter what David does, unless maybe David misses his bingo somehow and plays up here. That might actually help him somewhat in some ways in this position. But I really think if David misses his bingo, he's very, very likely to play something like this right here. Who, through the H of dashing, looks like a fantastic option to keep a very strong bingo leave. So I feel like Josh is destined to hit that Z hard. And we're getting a lot of points in the early going. I do worry as every second ticks off David's clock, Sam, that maybe he is not thinking of Snowline.
Yeah, I mean, probably not because it scores really well. I mean, it puts the W on a triple letter and then doubles the word. So if he'd seen it, he probably would have played it by now. But sometimes, oh, there it goes. So I was just about to say, sometimes it takes a while, I mean, for those, those of us who don't have quite that anagramming, skill of like a Josh or yourself or a Dave Wiegand. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes before you see these words. So great play, great find. And that's it's really kind of a crucial play because, he was going to go to he would have, Josh would have taken the lead, and Josh is holding the play also. One thing about Josh, so I said, I know his game pretty well, playing him a lot. He holds a lot of words. He doesn't always challenge the words. So he just likes to make sure, that he's remembering things correctly. So now once, whether Josh, he's accepted the play, and once he plays either probably Azons or maybe Zest, Josh won't quite retake the lead. So a critical play by David.
Yeah, agreed. Putting that W on the triple too. That play got 88 points with the power from that W all the way over to the double word score. So great find by David, like you said. He could have seen it immediately, but just been checking to make sure. I mean, there are some negatives to this play positionally, opening up multiple triples and an S hook here. You might have been saying, well, do I have anything else that doesn't do what this does to the board? But the answer is no. That's the only bingo available. And now it is up to Josh to realize that I do think Azons is a little bit better than Zest, just to undouble your two O's. Ooh, okay. I think that's a slight miss unless there is some reason that I'm not realizing. I think Azons looks good to keep a slightly better lead. Not only that, Sam, if you play Azons here, Josh, with his two S's, he would retain that unobstructed snow lines hook for next turn, whereas now he's limited the downside risk of bingos, for example, going across and pluralizing. So maybe a little inaccuracy by him, but certainly nothing that is going to immediately torpedo the game.
Yeah, I think that's totally agree. Well described. And I doubt this was a stat like I doubt he saw Azons, because to sacrifice 3 points to block the E, this row 15 or that triple word score in the bottom middle can be quite dangerous, as we're about to see. David's going to hit it pretty hard because he has that Y to make Nye and Y. So yeah, it's slight inaccuracy, and he's going to kind of pay for it in this case, though he did draw consonants, so he's in some he would have been a little overloaded had he played with consonants, had he played Azons. David looks like he has Melty. This is his highest scoring option by quite a bit, by over 10 points. So looks good to me, despite the leave. Would you have sacrificed any points there, or just taken the points?
Yeah, just MOY there leaves a little bit better, but 15 points is a lot. And I don't think that ELOT leave is so good that you would want to really place a premium on sacrificing that many points. So I do feel like David has made the correct choice here to go for 56 points. As I often say on these broadcasts, I would do a lot of things, Sam, for 56 points. Let's not even get into it.
You're bringing it up. It's like one of your catchphrases. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh does actually. He is going to get that S spot still. Probably. Well, if he might be able to use that S spot, I'm not sure. I mean, I see like Boss. He could play with snow lines. To score well. There's a fun suggestion in the chat of crossbowies. So Josh, if one of those W's was in an open spot, he would have the bingo crossbow. So crossbowies, it would be kind of a fun, invalid play for all of 14 points or whatever. But yeah.
Can you tack? Maybe you could tack another S on there. Well, he doesn't have a third one, I guess. Crossbowies with two S's, some kind of archaic. But yeah, very creative.
Yeah, if he really needed to open the board, I guess. So yeah, I mean, when you have an S, you at least my eye is immediately drawn to that snow line spot, like you said before. That's going to be where you can score the best. I mean, you could leave it open if you have a good alternative, just because you have the last two remaining S's. Like, it probably won't get obstructed, but I'm not seeing a good way to do it. It looks like well, actually, I mean, looking at the simulation you're running there, and it looks like the engine likes Boss with snow lines, or maybe Scrob at 12D would give him a chance to score well now, and hit that S spot next turn. Also seeing Corso suggested. I didn't know that word in column O, but I think Boss is probably fine. There's not a ton of great S. I don't know. I mean, you want to keep an S, of course. There's Moz. There's not a ton of great need for an S here, but and COR is not a bad leave. Maybe you can bingo with Rowies. So
yeah, that's why I think it likes that COR leave, is that when you do get a bingo, you often are going to be able to play it here with Rowies. That's my guess of why Boss does well. It scores 39 points, of course, which is very good. But all right, let's see. So Corso is the play. I feel like that is very defensible, Sam. Just keeping the S unless there's a really compelling reason that the board is terrible for the S. But as you noted, there is this hook here, excuse me, which is often going to be useful. And then some of the time you'll get a vowel, something like ES is still going to fit here. So the S is far from useless. And I do appreciate the instinct of wanting to keep one. I certainly don't mind Corso here for Josh, as he continues to kind of need a bingo. He's down by, 40-ish points. Looks like 45 points plus whatever David's able to score. So Josh does need a bingo to equalize. And certainly he has to hope that David does not draw one. And he certainly hasn't. He's got 3 sets of duplicated tiles, never something that we love to see as Scrabble players. We love to have those harmonious mixtures of all different vowels and consonants in a nice ratio. And it looks like fiad, probably feud, or however you're supposed to say that word, looks like that goes right here on top of snow lines kind of nicely. I would like that play from him.
Yeah, so do I. It kind of does everything he wants to. It gets rid of all of his duplicates and his F, which is not like good for bingoing. You usually want to like use it up to score, and it kind of starts to obstruct. I mean, oh, he's playing it with Dowies. That's a valid word.
Whoa, I don't think. Oh, this could be a huge unforced error. I don't believe this is valid. Look at Josh's instant. You saw his face, his furrowed brow instantly. This is a pretty big mistake, especially given with, maybe even a better spot for that word just in general. I guess this is a good spot to play this for defensive purposes, responding to the R hook and whatever else you're worried about, T hooking onto owies. But this is going to be a huge, huge swing in Josh's favor as this word is going to come off the board, Sam. That is, man, we're seeing a lot of phonies from the Collins games so far on stream.
Yeah, usually, you don't want to... there's less incentive to play a phony in Collins because it's only a 5-point, penalty for an incorrect challenge, right? As Collins players know. So it's very difficult to get away with a phony word, although it happened twice in the 3 games yesterday morning. So usually you're pretty incentivized to challenge anything you have even the remotest amount of doubt on. So yeah, a bit of an unforced error. Dowie is defined is as dull and low-spirited in Scots. So it's an adjective. It's an adjective that takes it compares. And I see Nitz Chukti in the chat is pointing out, Josh knows that it's an adjective. One thing, he's very well prepared in terms of the dictionary and anagramming, and he also does something a little bit rare, which is for Scrabble players, which he actually learns the meanings of the words. So for basically everyone except for possibly Nigel Richards, it helps us to know what these words actually mean if you can learn it. And so Josh is possibly remembering that Dowie, has that adjectival meaning, and there's Dowier and there's Dowiest, and maybe that helped him make that insta challenge. And now he's kind of faced with a bit of a I mean, he has no vowels, so
yeah,
kind of a tough decision. I mean, he like the engine seems to be suggesting maybe bonk through, but bonk is kind of what you don't want to do here because David has. I should say the engine with no inference. David can play fiat at the bottom of the board, kind of messing up some of these bingo lanes. So bonk, I'd be very reluctant to do this because you're basically blocking yourself. You have the blank, so you can kind of make up for it. You can hit harder spots like the T and zest, but it's I don't know. It's kind of the natural play in some senses, but it also blocks yourself.
Yeah, it's tricky because Josh needs to keep things at least a little bit open at this score, but he also wants to, figure out what could David have that would inspire him to have played fiat, and does he need to try to block the good location for it? I think that's, it's only a 26-point play, so I feel like Josh can think mostly offensively here. Excuse me, but I just want to respond to something you said, which I'm sure strikes some of our audience as kind of funny, which is how rare it is for somebody like Josh who knows all the definitions for words. You would think that that would be commonplace, but at this level, it is a rarity. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but in order to play this game at the highest level, we all have sort of limited memory RAM in our minds, and we have to commit as much of that to useful information as possible. And, sometimes the definitions of the words fall by the wayside in that effort. So kudos to Josh for actually knowing a ton of, and he really does. You can ask him pretty much anything that he plays at a tournament, and he is very likely to correctly verbatim tell you what the dictionary definition is. So yeah, a rarity. Maybe that's surprising to some, but not to those of us in the scene, Sam.
Yeah, well said. And just a correction on what I said previously. I said the engine was liking bonk. I was misreading it. It was liking bink. So he could have just played those same letters through the I, which I think would have been slightly preferable because, he is and was trailing and, wants to keep that hook as open as possible to owies. It's not totally closed, but it's a lot more difficult to access now because you have to hook ba as well.
Yeah, it's not just that too, but playing bink down low, if you just look at how the board would look, you just have this sevens lane too off of the O. So not only do you have the owies hooks, but you just have a simple place to play sevens, which is now inaccessible. So I agree that maybe positionally bink was a little bit better given the score of the game. This does seem to knot things up a little bit more. Not that things are dead by any means. There are definitely still some places to play. Maybe you fit something through the eye, but it just got a lot tougher. And David's play of Dosed made it even tougher to block this S, which could often be useful, as well as the T, a very not a conclusive block of the T, but a pretty solid one. Going to be really tough to use that T for a bingo now. So, and to make matters worse, Sam, Josh has failed to draw a vowel once again.
Yeah, Dose looked like a pretty nice play. David seemed to just not see the spot for Fiat on top of Snowlines and Melty because you would think he would probably play that since it was more than his original Fiat. But Dose was, it's good. Just kept his F. And yeah, he's got this vowel problem. So it looks like the top, some of his options. I mean, he could do something as simple. He doesn't have any good options here, really. I mean, he could exchange, but he could try to sort of muddle through this with something like div, div, through the I and snow lines, or maybe nav. And of course, I'm looking at the engine. Nav, you don't really want to block yourself. The problem is it's going to become a little tighter to fit a bingo. So it looks like he might be considering an exchange, which I really don't mind so much because, David's going to block the board and you kind of want to give yourself a good shot to just fit this bingo right now. Like maybe he can draw an EST bingo or an IST bingo to the T and zest. That would, kind of get him right back in the game, score really well, 80, 90 points maybe. So I don't have a big problem with this. It's not, I don't know if the engine would love it, but it seems reasonable because David should be trying to block up.
Yeah, practically speaking, it does make a good amount of sense. There are all those vowels that eluded Josh. I wonder if now he sort of wishes that he had one extra consonant, as that might make it more realistic that he actually is able to play something ending in EST. I feel like if you swap one of those A's out, right, for many consonants, you're actually looking at hitting something there. But he couldn't have known that, of course. And David is going to play Fooey here. This is a fun word. I wonder if keeping the three vowels there is going to hurt him, though. There were certainly ways that he could have avoided such an imbalanced leave there. This play does have a good amount of defensive merit, though, Sam. It blocks a lot of the area on the base of the board, and DI does not take any hooks, so this E is now inaccessible. So a lot of good things about this play. Let's just see if David can draw consonants, and so far, I thought he was going to, but a couple more vowels might slow him down a little bit.
Yeah, well said. It looks like one of those options was the very tricky hook on to make pist. So he could have put his P and making upa. Again, I'm looking at the engine, so but for this, but tough to commentate and think at the same time sometimes. But that would have been a nice way to hold on to that F to one of those consonants, and you could see, yeah, he would have had, well, a much stronger rack. I mean, he drew quite well, and he's still going to have vowel problems. But he has blocked, it's been pointed out in the chat, he did block Josh's bingo. So that is one credit to his play, is he's kind of blocked the best area. This is the problem with that bonk earlier. Bonk took out one lane, and now David's able to just play in the other lane. And now Josh is kind of stuck with a little more marginal lanes. He's going to hit a bingo eventually. His rack is too good, and he has the blank. So it's just good. He's going to make a bingo eventually, but it's just going to kind of take him more time than necessary.
Yeah. I also feel that if you look at this clock, I would be thinking with these letters, I have to have a bingo ending in a vowel here, right? I would be like, how could I possibly not have either a play like that or maybe something ending in N? I would be looking at these spots as well as this one for a while, but he doesn't have that much time to do that. And Josh has very few weaknesses as a Scrabble player, but I do feel that there are games where he can get into time trouble. And with this blank on the rack, the blank being the single biggest time suck of any tile in the game, because you have to consider so many possibilities to make it all these different letters in the alphabet. What could I do if I have A, B, C, D, and so on? I worry about his time right now, Sam.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also that's a fair assessment of it's a good assessment, I think, of his kind of game. And so, talked about his strengths, his word knowledge, anagramming, play finding. And I think, time management is maybe, an area he could, that would make him, push him even higher levels. And, he's already won the national champion, won the SPC last year. So these are nitpicks, but it's difficult. It's there's a lot of marginal lanes. So ending in an E. So you're going to look through all the sevens, maybe look through that T also. It kind of looks like you could somehow thread a bingo, maybe. Let's say you had some sort of word that ended in like ASTE or something like that. So it's, he eventually he's going to have to give up, but this is a tough situation. And you kind of end up looking back. I don't blame him for taking time here, but then you look back at other turns and wonder where could time have been made up. I'm not even sure how he's gotten so low on time, actually, where it came.
Yeah, I mean, the first move was probably frustrating because you hate to play Owie for such a low score. He thought for a while about Corso because there was a lot of different options there. Certainly the play of Bonk, which I feel like that's probably the biggest culprit in this game. If you could just take those letters and move them down right now and keep everything else equal, we would be seeing a very different game. For example, all else being equal, which probably is unfair to say because David seemed to be very hell-bent on trying to block this spot. So maybe he figures out a way to do that instead of some of the other plays that he's made. But yeah, just shift the B, N, and K down, hold all else equal. Josh is playing R8s and Towies right now and putting himself in much better position. As it is, very difficult situation for him. And he is going to play Auk into the K of Bonk, 14 points, leaving a very balanced leave. He is certainly thinking about, can he draw something ending in EST? I'm sure maybe he can draw a hook to Auk, of which there are several. But I feel like David is very likely to play Rodeo here, Sam, and score pretty well while dumping a lot of those vowels.
Yeah, that looks like a nice play. Auk seems fine, and you're opening up some hooks that, could be good for, could be a place you could use your blank to, since it is a little easier when you have the blank. So Rodeo's a nice option, scores really well. He's probably might not be thinking about that lane, that, EST lane, but just because, there's only one S and one blank. There is a really nice play Matthew O'Connor suggested in the chat. So between the DI from Dashing and Fui and that stuff and Snowlines and Melty, you could fit a D on the double letter and make it didst. And so he could play eared, EARD, and didst, and actually score pretty well. It does leave a really bad leave of EOO. This is a word, I believe, right? Rowi's a noun. So I don't know about this one though, because now he's leaving himself a vowel trouble, and he must not have seen Rodeo. I can't imagine, because it just, funny enough, he has it almost set up. He has the ADEO set up left over. But yeah, I would have preferred Rodeo just to score better. You are opening up, an R in space, to end in an R for an 8-letter word, but. And Josh, of course, finally, he's, his rack is too good. He's going to bingo. He could do greatest or something.
Yeah, greatest very likely to come down as the greatest play available here. And yeah, I feel like if you're not going to play Rodeo, which scores 30 points for David, admittedly, opening up an R at the top of the board might not be what he wants to do. I feel like Roue doesn't really do that much to address any threats on the board for David. I would definitely be looking to go for a few more points or try to make a play that's a little more successfully defensive. I guess it does a little bit block the A of Auk, and maybe sometimes you block something ending in OR or AR or something like that. But there were probably other things he could have done that were a little more defensive. And now Josh gets his bingo. And let me update the scores so that you can all see he is now up by 1 point. So we've got ourselves a game once again, 307 to 306. And a lot is going to hinge on Josh's next draw, just because David's tiles are pretty flexible, and he's definitely going to have something to do with his J. Maybe he has something better than that spot, but 40-ish points are coming quickly, and a horrendous draw for Josh, Sam.
Yeah, wow. Two V's and two U's. I know you had the video about when was it UVV was the winning draw for Dave Weekend, but I think the point of that video is that UVV is not usually a winning draw, and certainly W and double V. Yeah. And just to, I guess, not to put too fine a point on it, but for David could have just played doe, a deer, on top of Fui, making op and F, and would have scored like a few more points. And I don't think the D is any better to keep than the R. So yeah, I'm not, maybe an improvements, but he also might have wanted to play the clock game a bit and try to time pressure Josh. And if Josh didn't have a bingo, maybe he falls further behind. David's setting up that nice hook on Auk to make Jock. So this is scores 43 points. He could also just, I might just play Joe over Snowlines, because Caulk is also valid. C-A-U-K. It's like, I think it's just a weird spelling of like Caulk with an L.
Yeah.
And so if he plays Joe at the bottom, he's scoring really well. And then he's keeping that C. Maybe he can, at the very least, he can play like Dance, or maybe something even better there next turn. So, this is fine. But, it's a little like, you're making a nice hook. It's a little like, flashier, you could say, because, you're making a nice 5-letter word, Cajon or Cajon or something. But yeah, maybe just the simple Joe in two directions, I kind of prefer.
Yeah, I think the thinking behind just playing the J and only a small number of tiles is that David would have kept 5 good bingo tiles on his rack, as you said, Sam, with the C in it. I think he has a pretty good chance, maybe a surprisingly good chance, of landing a knockout blow of a bingo. The C being by far the best bingo tile, I believe, that hooks Auk. So a lot of times he is going to hit a bingo that scores very well with a hook in that spot and really potentially end the game. But it is hard to fault him for this play, which scores very well, uses that nice hook. He still is in very, very good shape. And Josh essentially forced, and he makes a good decision here to make this play quickly. He can't feel good leaving the 2 U's, but there isn't really that much else worth considering other than Viva in one spot or another, Sam.
Yeah, you talked yesterday, I believe, about the tendency, or you or that your partner talked about the tendency to, among sort of newer players or more maybe kind of amateur, quote unquote, we're all, well, players to be so worried about opening up a triple word score. I can certainly say, my grandfather who taught me Scrabble, he was like this, and he would never play Viva, because how can you give a triple word score? But it is the right play. This isn't, it looks like the right play to me. Yes, you could give something back, and he does give something back, but David was going to score well with this rack regardless. So I think Josh, yeah, that was a good decision, and he's going to be rewarded for it, because those U's have proved quite useful, because there was a Q lurking. And here's another play that should come down pretty instantly. He has quite another obscurity, and he is going to score 72 points with this one and retake the lead. So he's managed to dig himself out of that seemingly really bad rack, and he's done quite well to do so. On the other hand, David, had that great kind of nucleus that he kind of got rid of with Kajan, getting rid of the CAN. And now he's found some constant trouble, and this should be a pretty tight end game.
Yeah, it's crazy that Josh is wriggling out of what appeared to be an extremely grim situation. Viva leaving RRU. Rarely does the Q come to save the day in Scrabble, but certainly if you're holding multiple U's on your rack, that Q could quickly go from the customary albatross that we find it to be in tournament Scrabble into a saving grace. That is exactly what happened for him there. And he basically, that is, it's a 5-letter Q word, but for all intents and purposes, it might as well be a bingo here, scoring 72 points, exactly what Josh needed. And I don't really think there was a great way for David to have avoided that. I think Vex was a very, very logical play on his part, and I don't think he had any real options in that area of the board that could have saved him from the damage that he just incurred. So now he's going to have a very difficult decision on his hands with all those consonants. He does have the Y, but now it just feels like there are no really good spots on the board. There's no triple word scores accessible via a scoring play. The only way you could hit one would be a bingo ending in G, which he does have IN on his rack, Sam. Maybe, I don't think it's that desperate for him just yet, but it's possible he's going to try to prioritize keeping those 2 tiles on his rack. Maybe something like Fry, as weird as that looks, could be warranted just to keep the outside chance of being able to use this, knowing that there are no ends unseen to him. So it's going to be much tougher for Josh to make use of that spot.
That's really interesting. That looks like a good idea. There's a lot of vowels left, right? There's 8 more vowels, slightly, 1 more vowel than consonants, when the bag starts with more consonants than vowels. So, which is what he wants for a play like Fry, that he could, there's several things it looks like that he could hit. He could hit building, he could hit bielding, BIELDing, bridling, and bardling. So yeah, that kind of looks interesting when you don't have much else kind of going on, and there's not a ton of
high point. So he's going to go with a similar idea here. Phi, maybe he's worried about opening up that triple word. The problem with this is, it's a lot more likely that he's going to draw at least, he's likely to draw at least one consonant, possibly draws two vowels. But if he draws a consonant, it might be tough for him to get that bingo down. I guess you could bridging or something. It's possible he'll hit a bingo here. But yeah, he's drawn a 7-letter word, but there's not going to be anywhere for that, unless I'd be surprised if Josh opens up for that. And so yeah, I think Fry might have been a good idea. Just an improvement. Just there's nothing huge Josh could have really hit on that triple word score, making, let's say, F, EF off the F. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough pre-end game for Josh. There's still 6 tiles in the bag, and now he's under 4 minutes. Although
we gotta shout out another play, Sam, which is Yibo through the E and O right here, which in fact, as we see David spots his homeless 7-letter bingo, Yibo with the same 2-tile draw from the bag, David would be threatening drafting right now into the G. So there is a potential missed opportunity there. That leave, which after Yibo, the leave would have been something like FINDR. So having whatever the draw was out of the bag there be precisely what he needed to hit one of many plays, right? So I think the leave would have been FRIND. So with that leave, you could hit drafting, drifting, and maybe those are the 2 main ones you're going for. Hurler is going to be Josh's play. I do feel like, as scary as this looks to open that triple, Josh is trailing and he needs to score points. It feels a little crazy to open the triple in this way, but it's actually maybe deceptively difficult with no S's left to pluralize with sh, I should say. Not shushing you. But this might be not as easy as it looks to play a bingo, and Josh really, really needs those points here, trailing by 8 going into this turn. What do you think of that? It looks counterintuitive, but might be correct.
Maybe. I'd be nervous. That bag looked really good. I mean, it's still on the screen. It's just there. That bag looked really good for bingos. So you're kind of saying to David, okay, you have your one shot right now to hit a bingo. And there was only one E. There were 2 A's to go on top of the H. So yeah, you're kind of leaving it up to, chance, or to the chance of David having drawn a 7-letter word. But you also might think maybe David's a little consonant heavy. Maybe he doesn't have the E. And so, it looks like a good play. I might have considered other options that didn't open up like that, like maybe Quire, Quire. These points, now it kind of looks like very difficult. There's one in the bag, 5 minutes left for David Whitley. And we see the benefit of Hurler because he doesn't have the bingo, and it's like, how's he going to win this game? He's going to need to.
Well, fishing the B definitely could, from his perspective. Drawing an E gives you the chance to draw D train or something like that. But I feel like Josh should be able to block that under pressure. And unfortunately, it doesn't quite fit up here. Anti-red, trained, D train, none of them quite work in 2 spots. But if I'm David, I'm definitely feeling like fishing one tile and keeping my eye in order to play here. If I could just draw something with multiple anagrams, one of which plays here and one of which plays here, I'm going to win the game, right? So he has, maybe it's not realistic that he has any plays, but I would be sitting there thinking, God, maybe I can hit something here.
Yeah, the problem is, like you said, I mean, let's say you fish the B, you draw the E, you have to, you need something that fits in 2 spots, and it's going to be kind of tough to find something that's going to fit in 2 spots. I don't see it. I mean, there might be something. I'd also consider, I agree that's a consideration, but if that's not working, maybe there's a way to score well on this turn, and if you draw the right tile, you're going to be guaranteed to go out next turn. And maybe that'll be enough to just get you over the finish line. Like, let's say you do Bran at the top, making and new. I guess it's only 25, so you're actually still down by 1 point, but you keep DIT, and let's say you draw the E, so now you're going to have edits, making Chi to go out, and it might not be enough. Maybe Josh can score enough, and you're going to go. You could also go out with like Tide under the B that you've just put out there for Brand. So basically trying to go out in 2 and trying to sort of pick the letters in the bag that are going to let you go out in 2. The A would also work, because then you would have a dit in the same spot with Chi, and then also Ditta under the B. And I'm not sure if that's enough. Okay, so there is one. So I see it mentioned in the chat an example of the type of fish that you were looking for.
Fish the N. Yes, fishing the N, of course. Nice. That's crazy to think that if you fish the N wherever it is, it almost doesn't matter where you play that N. I guess you could play it here, right? So red bait, if you were to draw, you would have to fish the N and draw the E, which it looks like David has instead fished the B, which feels logical, but it doesn't actually fit anything that plays in 2 spots the way, as I was going to say, red bait plays here and tri-bait plays up here. So that is very, very clever and would lead to basically an auto win for him if he were to draw the E, which was 2 out of 8 from his perspective there. So either way, the G was in the bag, so it is a moot point. But yeah, that's definitely very slick to come up with that play, Sam.
Yeah, that would have been nice. The G was in the bag. Yeah, it would have been. I'm not sure he could have won at all, just given the G was in the bag and he didn't have that many vowels. And you kind of need a vowels to make scoring plays, especially if you're trying to go out first. So I think the way with the G left in the bag, he was going to be in trouble. And now Josh, as long as he doesn't open up a spot for darting or trading, he should kind of not coast, but he should be able to, win pretty easily as long as he makes like valid words. So yeah, like Telia, he's setting up Telia, and this is going to be a nice play with probably, I assume, at the top, scoring the triple word, and now he's shuffling around to elite, which I guess it's in the same spot. So yeah, as long as he put something valid down in the next like 30-40 seconds, because any of these plays is going to go out for him, next, like elite, even if it gives something back, it'll go out for him. He has AI, so that'll go out.
Just here. Yeah, just here with the Q, get some good points with that. So I think he's just checking, double checking, triple checking. What is my tracking? Am I giving up if I play elite, which at first glance looks scary to open this potential bingo lane? But given David's precise tiles of darting or trading, it is not a threat worth worrying about, as Josh has the lead. He would play elite for 20 points. David, the best he could do would be to play something like grand or grind underneath here. And then Josh would go out and easily win without much fuss. So he does need to not go overtime, I feel. So I think he needs to, he's got to make a play. Good job by him. That is the best engine approved play for him. So nicely done to spot that. And no hope here for David in what has turned out to be an extremely good game, Sam.
Yeah, very entertaining. Been a lot of close. Well, yes, there's been a bunch of close, good games. At least certainly in the Collins. Yesterday morning, I know games 2 and 3 were very exciting. Can't even remember game 1 already. And this is another good one. So yeah, also a good suggestion from Nadapat in the chat. I already forgot about that didst. He had the D again, David. So last term when he fished the B, he could have fit dab, making any, and putting the D with didst. So maybe that would have been enough also, because that scores really well. That would have scored over 30 points. So At this point, it's he could try darting and delight with that like misspelling of the word delight, but he's just gonna have to end the game. Maybe play something like grind or, an ed. But yeah.
So yeah, grind set up on the rack there. It's going to go down. That is also David's best play. Of course, when you have an engine approved best play that winds up losing the game anyway, sometimes you're going to look further down the list for plays that maybe they aren't technically approved by the engine, but maybe they create a more challenging play or win condition for your opponent to find. And if they find that, then yeah, you are going to lose by more, but you have a more practical chance of actually winning. I don't feel like there was any play like that available for David here. And we are going to have a final score of Josh Castellano winning this game 475 to David Whitley's 449. So, man, this was not looking good. You can go back in the mid game here, Sam. Even after the phony play by David and Josh playing bonk, which maybe we thought should have been bink, and then David plays dosed and Josh has to exchange 5, and David goes up by 80 in the mid game. It was looking pretty grim, but he found a way to get it done. Maybe we'll cut to overhead mic and see what the players are saying.
Word, right? I think it's like 95%.
When can
I
you
think
play?
I'm also 95%.
I'm like 95.
Wait.
So when I played bonk, see,
How are you going to play golf?
no, just underneath.
Oh, down there.
So I have a spot, and otherwise this just destroys the board. And then I had to fish, and then it was. It's the judge's bench, right? Okay, it's a bench. Yeah, I should have when I played bonk.
Oh, I
should have played
see.
bink,
Being through the
but
eye
I have
of
this
there.
and this,
I
and
know
it's
the
like
definition of this word.
it's
but
easy
if I
street.
try-
But I played bonk,
Shower was
and then you play this, and it's like
I saw. And I'm going to come to regret this, but maybe I was going to get the ESD bingo, and then
What is your
when I
playing
played
with one in the bag? I missed
the
it.
last one in the bag was it.
Wait for the B. Okay.
Yeah.
There was a fun discussion in the chat about that.
this is a word too, right? It's
Still
like
on? Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
Oh, I was really
Yeah.
I was.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't sure at all. That's why I took forever on that.
So people in chat were saying instead of fishing the B, fish the N
Was that a,
because tri-bait and red bait, 2 spots.
I didn't.
yeah.
I was running out of time, and I'm not.
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
try.
Tri-bait and red.
Tri-bait.
Tri-bait.
Oh, red bait,
Red bait.
yeah,
with-
red bait, yeah.
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 I was really close to getting it.
Yeah.
The actual bag was the G, right? Yeah, it's the G.
I mean, I actually loved Vex because like a lot of 2-vowel draws where you can be reading or braiding,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
reading.
Yeah, I really did not want to play hurler, but I was down 8, and
Yeah,
the pool was really good, so I had no choice.
It was great that
I
it
hope you
left
didn't
one in the
bingo.
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another big reason why I played it. Like, okay.
I had a bingo, but it didn't fit. I had Antbird.
Oh, nice. Oh wow, that just yeah.
That was fun. At least, I have just like completely muffed so many streamed games.
Oh,
It was nice to play one that was really, it was mostly okay.
yeah.
Yeah, those would have been better instead of. What I liked about that is that does take so many hooks, and I need to get rid of that. And then
This when you put the S on owie, it only takes RTY.
yeah, I just was not even thinking because I was already ready for all the hooks of Owie and didn't stop to think which ones were.
All right, maybe we cut back to us here. That was a lot of interesting intel there, Sam. So David saying he was thinking about the hooks to owie, but didn't recalibrate once that S hook came down, and maybe that was the source. Because I really feel like if you were to ask him, is this good, and have him think about it for a second, he wouldn't have gone ahead there. That was a huge turning point in this game.
Yeah, that's probably if you had to pick one key play, that's the key play when you lose your turn in the middle of the game. And when you look at the end of the game and there's a 26-point spread. So, yeah, if he had, managed to get that fee out off his rack earlier. But yeah, a lot of interesting points. Josh not being, I hadn't even thought about that. He might not be sure of the word bank. That's how often it's the case here. We're trying to think why'd they do something, but it's maybe you just weren't sure of the validity of the word. There's a lot of words out there. So even though he knows, like you pointed out in the chat, he knows that it's a judge's bench, but he couldn't, so couldn't pull the trigger on the validity, and it made things a lot tougher for him. But there were a lot of interesting turns, a lot of small decisions that could have changed things. But yeah, that Dowie's kind of sequence where he pluralized Owie and then he lost his turn later. That's probably the one he would want to have back, I would think. It just one turn closer to getting your rack out of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the judge's bench comment, that's hilarious that he correctly remembered the definition. But I guess in just a moment of unsureness, that was also a big swing in the game. But he was able to overcome what might have been a more constricted board and get a huge win in this game, as Josh Castellano now moves into first place in the Collins division with a 7-1 record. But again, this is round 8 of what is going to be a 31 game tournament, Sam. It is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.